Well, thank you, Joel, and hi, guys. It's good to be with you again this evening. And for our next topic, we're going to talk about showmanship and round robin structure. And while showmanship may seem fairly straightforward, it seems that every county approaches that differently in their county, as well as the round robin. And that's the one that really we could probably ask everyone how their round robin is structured, and it's going to be different in every single county. So we'll have 105 different ways of doing it, which I know we say that about a lot of topics, but round robin is one that is definitely unique. And I get lots of questions about when people are thinking about changing things up or making it more effective for the youth in their county. And so we've invited several counties to speak on how they do it. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some good discussion on what's worked best for everyone regarding both showmanship and how they set up their round robin. So we're gonna start in Cowley County with Kelsey and Jesse, and they're going to talk about how they handle it.
And Lexi, I launched our poll to start. Can you?
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Sorry, I did that while you were talking just to fill in. So if you want to go through the questions, I'll scroll them down.
Yeah. So the first one being which species are included in your showmanship round robin. And that's one that gets really interesting, especially when you get into people that do include a dog in some of those smaller animals. And two, although we've already talked about judges, that circles back around to finding qualified judges for all of those different species if you have, 6 or 8 different species that you're showing. But it looks like most people have the standard cattle, swine, sheep, meat, goat, and then a lot of you also have horse and are including some dairy. So that's really good. And then also age groups is another one. There are some counties that don't allow junior exhibitors. You have to be an intermediate or senior to participate, while obviously others allow their juniors to participate. And then also, how are those participants selected? Are they the champion showman in their age division? Do you pick an overall champion in showmanship for each one of the species? So it looks like there's a species champion and reserve showman for about half of you that's coming in, and for some it's only the species champion. So we'll hope these counties will share some good information, and then at the end, those are some good talking points for us to get into about the differences and how each of you handle that in your county. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Kelsey and Jesse.
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Nordyke, and I'm the agriculture agent here in Cowley County. I've been in Cowley County for about, right at 15 years, and we've done our round robin showmanship pretty close to the same way the entire time I've been here, but it works really well. Our round robin superintendent Jesse Bradley is joining me this evening, and I'm going to just go through our rules with you real quick. And I did not provide any slides, so bear with me because I'm going to just pull up our fair book, and I'm going to read those to you. So the champion and the reserve champion showman from the senior divisions show in our round robin, and just from our beef cattle, our dairy cattle, horse, sheep, meat goats, dairy goat, and swine are eligible. And so they have to show the animal that they qualified for in the event. So their livestock that they qualified with, because we have enough livestock for each showman to show throughout the round robin. So we'll have 12 kids, we'll have 12 head in the ring at a time, especially with those small livestock. The exception being horse, where we only bring 2 horses in. And then our dairy cattle and our beef cattle, because our ring is not big enough to put 12 head in there. After they're named the champion senior or reserve champion senior showman in their division, they can't qualify in another division. So, for example, our horse show is our very first show. And if you are the grand champion horse showman, and then you're the grand champion dairy showman, you have to show in the horse division. And then we go down to the next in dairy. So we would have our reserve champion dairy showman show, and then our third place. So we actually have our judges place at least the top 5 showmen, so that then if we need to go down, we can. And actually this last year we did go down to our 3rd and 4th place showmen in a couple of species this year. We did have to add a rule a few years ago that for species that had limited senior exhibitors, that they had to allow the use of their livestock in the round robin. And if there's not a contestant from each species, because there was a year that we had, I think, 2 senior showmen in dairy cattle, we have limited showmen in our dairy goats, but we still have our species superintendents make every effort to provide enough livestock for everyone to show. And then our round robin participants draw for the animal that they're going to show, with the exception of their species that they qualified in, and then they show their livestock. And that's it for rules. Jessie is on, and actually Jessie used to be our sheep superintendent, and a few years ago she reached out and she was ready to switch, and so she and another one of our former superintendents moved over to our round robin competition, and they really did a lot to spruce that up and really draw interest. And so Jessie, if you're on, I think you're on.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Awesome. Take it away.
I would just like to add to the fact that we placed our round robin at in the evenings so that we can have more of our fair goers come and watch and experience round robin. In our county, we really have a high regard for showmanship, and so it has been our desire to promote it among our fair goers. So our arena that evening is packed with people to observe our round robin, and we've been real pleased with that. The other thing that's been really exciting is that we have seniors, and we limit ours to seniors, have really made an effort to, for an example, we've had kids that have never shown one species, and they've only limited themselves to the knowledge of one species, but then they've participated, like, for example, our dairy kids have become sheep showers so that they can learn the techniques of how you show a sheep, because they're really interested in the round robin and participating and doing well in the round robin. The other thing I'd like to say is that we have tried to really provide some prizes for our kids. As a total group, we've had sponsors. We do different type of things to, I hope, excite kids to be participants. But then we have our grounds and reserve prizes that our sponsors have been very, very generous in providing those prizes. So it's become exciting in our county to see more and more kids really want to be a part of this activity during our fair. So I think what I really think is that if you make it a night show, you have that opportunity to draw in more people, and more people get to see our kids perform and do well. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. And we'll circle back around to you in a little bit when we have some questions, both in the chat box and at the end. We're going to move on to our second county, which is Pratt, and we have Vicki and Shannon who are going to share how they handle things in their county. So Vicki, are you on and ready?
Yes, I am. I am here.
All right.
So for Pratt, we went through and kind of revamped the rules a few years ago. We had some competitive competitiveness issues. So we went through and tried to rework it to make it a little bit more fair and even for everyone. So what we do is anybody can participate in showmanship after each of the different livestock shows. So it's just up to the kids to get themselves there with their animal to enter into showmanship. And then the reserve and champion for the intermediate and senior of each species, horse, beef, swine, sheep, and goat, qualify for the round robin contest. We decided that there will be no alternative participants. So if somebody decides after the show is when they have to make the decision if they're going to participate. If they decide not to participate, there is no substitution going down the line. And if you have a participant that qualified in, say, horse Monday night, and then they qualify in sheep later on, they qualify for both and fill that spot. There's no second person from sheep or second person from horse that fills in. So we have a max of 20 participants, but last year we had, I think, 7 in the senior and 7 in the intermediate. And then when we get to actually the show, how we do it is all animals in the species are assigned a number, and each participant draws a number before the contest starts. So a half hour before the contest is supposed to start, we have all the participants meet and we go through the rules. At that time, we announce the species that the judge has determined will be the tiebreaker species, if we have a tiebreaker. And then each participant draws a number at that point in time. And from that point on, they are not to communicate with anyone in the audience or anyone outside of the show arena, just the superintendents and then the judge if they ask them questions. So basically, we have the superintendents, and then the helpers from different species select the animals to be used. And horse, we limit that to 4 horses just for safety. We don't have that done down in the ring. We have it up near the show barn, so we don't want too many horses out at the same time. And then if an individual gets a animal from their family or their own animal, then the judge is notified of that and can ask them to switch which animal they are showing. And basically the contest order goes horse, sheep, goats, swine, and then beef. And the seniors start, and then the intermediates go after them. So we have the seniors all show together, and then we have the intermediates. And basically our show is Friday late afternoon, so it starts at 4:30, and our beef show ends in the morning on Friday. So they have the afternoon, if they know they're going to be in round robin, to go and talk to other 4-H'ers and leaders in different livestock groups to try to prepare themselves for the contest. And that's kind of the main rules that we have for our contest. Shannon, do you have anything else to add?
No, other than, yeah, we do put a great emphasis on the showmanship, and I think kids are excited about that. You know, certainly the round robin is about the showman and not necessarily the animal, which is why it really appeals to all kids, in that it doesn't matter that they have a show hog or not. And I think it has worked really well in the last year, in that really everyone wants to participate. It's we've kind of associated, there are some great prizes. We have some great sponsorships for our round robin, awarding the Grand and Reserve. It's an achievement that the seniors want to go for, and it has worked really well for us. And you know, to have the top 2 in each species. You know, our horse events are early in the week, and so we know the showman on Monday and Tuesday of Fair Week, and then we pick our top 2 in each of the other species shows. And so last year, I know it worked well. We didn't really have a lot of overlap. In the horse, because I'm a horse superintendent first, we did have, you know, an issue where one of the horses was kind of acting up. And so it is totally, we leave it to the judge's discretion. And last year she decided, let's just use one horse for all kids. And it worked well. And that rule is maybe something we didn't capitalize in the past, in that the judge's decision is final. And it seemed to work really well last year. We, the superintendents, try to pick animals that, you know, after observing them in the ring, we know that they're going to handle well for, you know, most kids. And because, you know, safety, of course, is a priority. And I think we did a good job last year of choosing the animals, and it becomes a real team event. The superintendents are on board. The kids are involved. We encourage cross-training between species for kids that haven't shown before. I think we encourage the juniors to watch the seniors and the intermediates. And so it becomes, you know, a goal for those who are approaching their senior year to become qualified for the round robin.
The other thing we do is we have the judge rank the participants, and that is how their score is determined. So we did that to try to avoid having ties by not having everybody awarded, you know, a 9 or an 8, because everybody did really good, forcing them to rank them 1 to 10 for each species.
Right. That's a good point.
I think that's what
we keep a scorecard, and the kids are welcome to go look at their score sheets even after the round robin, which I thought is helpful for the kids to improve next year.
Wonderful, ladies. Those are some great things and very interesting tidbits. We did a good job finding 2 counties that approach it very differently. And so with that, we'll ask you guys to just hang tight if we have any questions here in a little bit. And we're going to move on to Patsy and Claire from Norton County to share how they do their showmanship in round robin. You can take it away, Patsy.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am Patsy Matty, the 4-H agent for Twin Creeks Extension District, which covers Norton, Decatur, Sheridan, and Graham counties. We, on the other hand, on the other side of Pratt, had to instill a little more competition because our kids really weren't taking it seriously. And to me, the round robin competition should be the elite show of your fair, because it's not based on an animal, it's based on what you know, and the education of the animal. So in our counties, the superintendents choose the livestock with the permission of the kids or the owners of the livestock. They try to watch the shows during the regular judging of the animals to choose those animals that are pretty well trained so that we don't have any accidents. I do have 1 or 2 counties. We have switched it up. So if I have 5 kids that are going to participate in beef, we choose 5 steers. Before, we didn't allow them to show their own steer. And last year that was switched up a little bit. So if you won in the beef competition, then you were allowed to show your own animal. That's not in all 4 counties, but in a couple of them. that happened. In one of my counties last year, they decided they wanted to try to make it fair across the board. So they used one animal for all of the kids. That doesn't work so well with swine because those pigs get hot and tired and they don't cooperate very well. So chances are we're going to rotate back to all of the kids in the ring at the same time. We have 2 rings going at the same time, juniors and seniors in 2 of my counties and 1 in the other county. So it just depends. We usually try to hire 2 round robin judges in a couple of the counties. So they switch. So if we have horse and pigs, the seniors are doing horse, juniors are doing pigs, and then we switch them. And so we have 1 judge is judging all of the juniors at the same time, and the other judge is judging all of the seniors. So there's consistency in the judging. As far as who can participate, that's where we had issues. Quite a few years ago, we had to go clear down to like the 7th place in one of the species in one of my counties. And so we decided, our fair boards decided that we really needed to put some, grit to this competition. And so they have decided that Grand and Reserve champions are the ones that will be eligible to show. If the Grand champion is champion in more than 1 species, then they get to choose, and then the Reserve champion comes in. And we have not gone past that in a couple of my counties. A couple of them they do. And that just gives your competition is a little bit more elite that way. One of my counties, they let both Grand and Reserve participate. The other counties, it's just the Grand champion. And if the Reserve, if they get Grand in more than 1 species, then we just don't have another participant in that. And that just keeps that showmanship level a little bit more on the high quality side. Like I said, it's not about the animals, it's about what they know. So what we have done in the past, and I think all of my counties have gone to this, we do a type demonstration before the contest so that all of the kids are hearing the same thing about how to show all of the species. So the senior is the one that's on the mic, and the juniors are the one that are actually showing the animal. And then we have a superintendent that's pretending to be the judge. And they give them tips on what to do, how to show them, little tips and tricks. That way everybody's getting the same information, and they're not, and you're going to the Grand champion to find out, what did you do to earn that eligibility level. And so that has worked out pretty well. A couple of my fairs, they just started that last year. It gives those kids, the senior kids, a little bit of leadership, gives them an opportunity to present in front of public, because we start having the public come in before that round robin competition begins. And so a little bit more of an edge there. Let me see. Animals, like I said, superintendent chooses them. They try to get animals that work. Last year we did have a horse in one of my counties that was not working well, and so they switched him out. Superintendents make that decision in consultation with the judge. If you have a really good judge, a round robin judge, and he sees that a kid is having trouble with an animal, I like to see them switch it up. Is it just the kid, or is it the animal? And so if they're switching it up and then the other kid isn't having any problems, then maybe it's the showmanship skills of that individual. So I like to see that happen, and we try to instruct our judges on that. One thing that we did have happen in a couple of my counties last year, they were not asking enough challenging questions for the seniors. So that is one thing that we're going to try to work on this year, so that they're not just asking them, what do you think your animal weighs? What is the breed? We want to get a little bit more into the education part of it. Let's see. I think that's about it. I guess a couple of the unique things for our counties is that we do have our youth that are doing the type demonstrations. And that has helped all of them. They have the opportunity to work on that and study and, look at the different species as they go. But like I said, this gives those older kids and the intermediates as well an opportunity to show a little bit of leadership there. And Claire was going to talk a little bit about the benefits for kids.
Okay. Yeah. No, just like Patsy pretty much said, a lot of the good things about the round robin and the structure. The bigger thing is like the education that the kids have about the livestock, the animal that they're showing, and that they're learning about the livestock that they don't personally show, so that it's an ongoing learning environment. The biggest thing I do like how Patsy touched on the education is it's not just showing the animal. You see a lot of these animals and the kids work with them and they work hard with them, but they need to be knowledgeable about them as well and be able to answer those questions and know what's going on in the current markets, especially the seniors, so that they are learning about their species as well. And just from the kids' standpoint of the kids teaching each other, like Patsy said, it gives them the leadership skills and being able to work together and have some teamwork, but also have a good competition as well, and have the good sportsmanship, working together and showing everybody all the same stuff, and just the teamwork between the intermediates and the seniors working together as far as to show everybody everything too. And as we all know, with all the skills in 4-H, just those skills in being able to be competitive and sportsmanlike and educated and educating others about the livestock is just huge for the kids to carry on for the rest of their life. So.
And kind of tagging on to that, when I was in 4-H, it was extremely competitive. And so our family did not show horses. And so we would go to those horse kids and ask them how to do it. And they intentionally told us wrong. So that's how competitive it was. And so having the kids do it as a group and do that type demo kind of eliminates some of that. I'm not sure we're at that competitive level at this point yet. Hopefully we will get there, because I really do think, like I said, this is the elite show of the fair, and our kids are starting to see that.
And I think it's important that they're teaching each other, and with showmanship, the style changes, and it changes at every different show that you go to, or even state shows, or the different competitive levels of what you can or can't do, or how you were raised in showing. Just even from my generation of showing to showing now, I have to watch some of the shows so that I can give tips to the kids on what we can do. But no, I just really think it's really good for the kids to be able to learn how to be competitive and sportsmanlike and work together, but then still go and do their best, because when they are showing in the round robin, you're going to find out how much they paid attention to how to show the other species and education, and then maybe take it upon themselves to look up some things about the species that they don't know as well, to learn about them and paying attention and learning from the other 4-H members.
Okay, that is great information. Thank you for sharing that. And you have some unique things happening in Norton County. And with that, I think Joel has made a poll question after all of this discussion. And so it's about kids repeating. So once a youth wins round robin, can they compete again in their age division? It looks like the majority of you are yes, that most of you do allow the kids to compete again in their age division.
Yeah, very good.
And we did have a question from the chat that and then I have a follow-up question based on that question as well. But if each one of you want to share the order of showmanship, and I think, Mr. Dugan, you meant age of the kids, so showmanship within each species. Do you start with juniors or do you start with seniors? So how do each one of your counties handle that for the showmanship portion of each species show? Kelsey, do you want to start with Cali and tell us how you do it for Cali County?
Yes, so I was just starting to type it into the chat actually. We always start with horse because our horses are not housed at the fairgrounds during the fair, so they're brought in and we want to give them the opportunity to get out as well. Plus our fairgrounds is pretty crowded. So we always start with horse. We follow with swine because it is so hot and we want to give those pigs the opportunity to get into the ring and get back out. And then from then, I believe we go to sheep and then beef cattle, then goats, then dairy cattle. And I believe dairy goats are last. Did I miss? I may have missed one. But we make sure that we start with horse and follow with swine, and then from there it may vary a little bit.
Okay, and for your actual species shows, like at the beef show, do the juniors go first or do the seniors go first?
Oh, yeah, so in our actual species shows, we always show senior, intermediate, junior, so that those younger kids have the opportunity to watch the seniors and then to listen to the judge when they're critiquing the older age groups.
Okay. And that seems to be the consensus of what's in the chat. And with that, I will also go ahead and ask you while you're on here, is your showmanship before they judge the show or is it after? So do you do the market classes and then do showmanship, or do you start with showmanship and then do the market and breeding classes after that?
So we give our species superintendents some leeway on when they want to do showmanship, so it varies. With horse, showmanship is the very first thing we do, and our horse show is held almost a week in advance of our fair because we have to hold it off-site. And then for meat goats, that's our first livestock show on the grounds. We've done showmanship last. We have one species that does showmanship beef does showmanship in between market and breeding, and swine does showmanship first, I believe. So, and dairy is also first, I believe, and then dairy goats is at the end. Sheep is in the middle and meat goats is at the end. So it just kind of varies on species, and there's a lot of different thoughts to why those superintendents do that. Some feel like by doing showmanship at the end, that judge can be quicker in determining their showmanship placing because they've been able to watch the kids show. As a parent of kids that show meat goats, and our meat goat show is in the evening, and it's 8:30, 9 o'clock by the time we get to showmanship, our kids and our goats are exhausted by the end. So you just don't know what's going to happen. Beef, they've always done showmanship in the middle that way. That way it gives heifers a chance to get ready, because our heifers show last, and it gives our beef or our market steer kids time to get theirs out once or twice before they come in for showmanship.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And that's interesting that it's different for every species depending on their species and when they show during the fair. Vicki, do you want to let us know the order, whether the senior kids go first, and then when you have showmanship in the order of your species show?
So for the species show, it kind of just depends. Our superintendents are in charge of the individual species, so that varies for our fair. But for showmanship for round robin, the seniors go first and then the intermediates for all of the species. So that's how we run that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And you'll notice that Norton County included all of their answers in the chat box if you are following that. And we did have a question earlier about attire, if you required a t-shirt similar to how KJLS does, or there are some that mentioned they have a t-shirt. So if anyone has something unique as far as attire requirements, if you want to put that in the chat box, we'll let other people know what you do in your county if they may be looking for an idea.
Yeah. Lexi, the other one that's come up in the chat box quite a bit when we talked about order, you know, within a species, when you do showmanship during the regular show, kind of looks like most of the smaller species, sheep, goats, swine, looks like most of that showmanship in general is done at the beginning. And it's my experience too, and it's said in the chat, in cattle is the one that generally will be in between the two market and the breeding. And not in everyone by any stretch, but if showmanship is in the middle, it's generally in cattle. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure why. If you go to some spring shows, that's what they do. County fairs carry that. So that's probably the one over time too that is the different one. There's different reasons justifying it. And there's some people that get really mad that it's in the middle. There's some people that believe it should be for their reasons. So again, no right or wrong, just but very different philosophies in cattle, I would say, in general, compared to some of the other species where showmanship is placed.
Yep, very true. And I'm seeing some great discussion and suggestions. I don't really see any more questions. A question I might pose out there too that I think is interesting between the counties is, and we did talk about judges in the first session, but usually judges are handled a little differently for showmanship and the round robin in general. So if you could share in the chat how many judges you get for the round robin. So do you have one? Do you have one per species? Or do you get a couple and they cover multiple species? So how does your county handle how many judges you get?
This is Jake from State Farm. Can I talk?
Go for it.
Okay, our round robin is at the end of the beef show, and all species are at the same time. We usually start with seniors, then go to juniors and intermediates. So we have a judge for each species, and then it's done at the end of our fair the last night after the last show. So
Okay.
everything is done at the same time, and everybody's there at once watching everybody go. And we have the seniors go first so that
All right, Jake, I think we lost you.
you got me now?
Oh, yep, you're back now.
I don't know where I lost you, but I lost you somewhere. So, but we do have a different, each species has a different judge and they're all at the same time. We don't do dairy animals because we don't have enough in our fair to promote those as a showmanship. If we get numbers back up, we'd do a lot of different species also, but we do it all at one night in a row.
Okay, and so do you include horses?
Yes.
And are horses during your fair, or were they decided prior so they haul them in that night of the fair to follow the beef show?
They are during our fair, but they're not housed at the fair, so they have to haul them back in.
Okay.
For the showmanship.
Yep. And not surprising, most people commented that when it comes to animal problems, horse is what stands out in most people's mind, is finding a horse that will work safely and appropriately for as many kids as possible. some great comments and a good mix of the judges that you're having, one per species, and some of you are just having a couple that cover them all.
Lexi, this is Kara Comstock from Labette County. Our round robin structure is a little bit different. We actually have a split round robin. So we have kind of a typical 5 species round robin that is horse, cattle, swine, sheep, and goat that go together. And then we actually have a bucket calf, dairy cattle, and dairy goat round robin that shows together.
Okay, that is an interesting spin on it. So how do you do your judges for those 2 round robins?
So our bucket calf, dairy goat, dairy cattle round robin, our dairy judge usually judges that. So we have the same judge for dairy cattle and dairy goats. Those shows aren't very big, so we just allow that judge to do that as well. And then we have, for our 5 species, kind of livestock, more oriented round robin, we have 2 judges that do that, which are typically the judges that do our bucket calf show as well. So they each do, those 2 judges each do 2 species, and then usually they pick a species that both of them judge, and they that's kind of their tiebreaker species that they average the points on.
Okay, and what age groups do you include in your round robin?
Ours, I believe, is all age divisions. Kyle might have to correct me on that. I'm still kind of trying to remember everything with the new fair, but I know that we do. It's at least intermediate and senior for sure.
Okay, awesome. Great discussion. Well, if no one has any more burning questions they would like to pose about showmanship in the round robin, it's about time for us to wrap up this topic. And so I'll go ahead and kick it back over to Joel, and we'll get into our open questions and closing thoughts that anyone might have to wrap up the clinic.